I don't mean in a scientific sense, that is the sequential progression of events, or even in a philosophical sense, where we could question whether or not time exists as a concept at all. I mean more in a social, even political sense. How do people on this planet experience time differently? And who feels entitled to have power and control over how they spend their time? Annie Dillard said that the way we spend our days is the way we spend our time. It is in fact the way we spend our lives. But what if we don't have control over our time? Is our life then our own? Is our life then the one that we would choose? And so who does then feel entitled to have power and control over how they spend their time? I believe that this is one of the most important questions facing gender equality, but more on that soon. When I was 40 years ago, I started to dream of becoming an author. I used to scribble and draw in my mother's 1970s her books and try to sell them on. I didn't make very much money, but the spark was lit. For a little girl who never really understood the rules of the playground, writing was my form of play. It was what I chose to do when I had any spare time. Fast forward many years and a few creative writing degrees later, and a new dream started. I wanted to start a family and become a mother. And I did start a family and become the mother of two beautiful girls who I love more than anything in the world. But an interesting thing started to happen. My time started to be consumed by everything and everyone around me. And I started to become quite opaque. Everyone knew me as a mother and a wife and a work colleague, but nobody really knew me, including myself, as a human being with interests and passions outside of my household and workplace. Another interesting thing happened, and that is that I started to realise I wasn't taking any of the advice that I was giving. Follow your dreams, I would say. You can achieve anything you want with some hard work, I would say. Life is short, I would say. And I was also faced with the realisation, as many parents are, that my children were going to watch me more than they were going to listen to me. And so a new spark was lit. I desperately wanted to embody the type of woman I wanted my daughters to become. Someone who didn't feel selfish for carving even a slither of time out for themselves. But how to do that? How to do that as a working mother? How to do that even with a supportive partner and workplace? How to do that when you often feel as though you're in a vice with the mental load of motherhood on one side and just the daily reality of having to earn a living on the other, with that vice closing in tighter and tighter until you seem not to exist at all. There's a whole generation of women who are brought up with the belief and the idea that they can do and have it all, but also too with stereotypical gender roles. And those women are exhausted. There's a whole generation of women who are brought up with the dream of a white wedding and a picket fence, a house and 2.3 children, with the idea that a man choosing to marry you is the ultimate stamp of approval. But they were also brought up with the encouragement to take advantage of all the opportunities that weren't afforded women before them, with having to earn their worth that way as well. And those women are exhausted. There's a whole generation of women who are made to feel as though being a stay-at-home mum isn't good enough, but being a full-time working mother is negligent, all the while having part-time work and motherhood made almost impossible by a society who refuses to acknowledge that a 9-to-5, 5-day working week was created by men, for men who had no obligations outside of the workplace. And those women, they're exhausted. A recent study by the University of Melbourne found that women all over the world are still largely responsible for their household's unpaid labour. That this unpaid labour is often done in conjunction with part-time or full-time work, and that this is creating what's called a double burden. a double burden that is creating soaring rates of depression and anxiety and loneliness and exhaustion. Because time can be seen as a resource that is important for a happy and healthy life. But just like most resources, time is socially shaped. So what do we do? What do we do when the societal change that is required to respond to women's time poverty is not happening quick enough? It's not happening fast enough to affect our day-to-day lives now or in the immediate future. So what do we do? Today I'd like to focus on not so much the time poverty and exhaustion, but on what we can do with what we've got while still calling for societal change. Today I'd like to talk about taking back our time. Gloria Steinem said that power cannot be given, but it can be taken, and that it is in the taking that there is empowerment. So today I'd like to talk about how we can be more in time empowered, how we can take back some of our in-between time and achieve our dreams. Now, your dream doesn't have to be starting a big business or going to university and getting a new degree, although it might be. Your dream might be to start flamenco dancing or to learn how to play your favourite song on a guitar. Your dream might simply be to rest more, to laugh more, to play more. Your dream might simply be to rediscover that little girl inside of you who used to, without a shadow of a doubt and without a glimmer of guilt, know how to have fun. My dream was to write a novel, and this year I released my debut novel, The Heart is a Star, with HarperCollins Australia, and it went on to be a bestseller. But how? How do I do that? How did I get from being in the vice to achieving my dreams in the in-between? Today I'd like to share with you the acronym that I created to keep me mostly on track, and that is DARE. D-A-R-E. D is for delegate, A is for adjust, R is for remember, and E is for express. Delegation is really hard. I certainly found it difficult. So what I did was start to make lists of what I did during the day and week, things that I could start to give to other people. I noticed I spent hours folding laundry and putting away and pairing socks. So I started to put piles of laundry on people's beds and ask them to put it away. I started to leave socks in bags and tell people to pair them themselves. I stopped volunteering for so many things, and rather going to meetings after school drop-off and school pick-up, I sat in my car and I wrote my book. I shared driving with other mothers to dancing and sports to reclaim some of that time during the week. But with delegation also comes adjustment. I had to adjust my expectations of myself, those around me, and my environment. And for me, that looked like opening drawers and being okay with messy clothes. It looked like looking at feet and seeing mismatched socks. It meant giving up the dream of writing my novel in a cabin somewhere or a library lined with books. And it meant being okay with writing it in the car. I also had to adjust how I saw my time and stop feeling so guilty when I carved it out for myself, and remember that my girls were watching me. R is for remember. I wanted to remember that little girl inside of me who used to desperately want to write and do that to have fun. So I put a photograph of myself as a 5-year-old inside my notebook, and every time I opened it up, I would see her. And E is for express. The thing is that a lot of the time when we do these things, it's behind closed doors, or people don't see it. We don't take up space with ourselves. And so I started to try and change the narrative. When people would ask me how I was doing, instead of saying things like busy and tired, I started to say, I'm writing my novel, and I tried to say it in front of my girls. These might seem like little things. These might seem like in-between things, but they change the way we spend our days and in turn the way we spend our lives. These in-between moments may seem small, but I believe that they can make us make great strides towards gender equality. Thank you.